What if I told you there's a car inspection so brutal that it forces ordinary drivers to become expert mechanics overnight? Japan's legendary Shaken inspection is the reason their cars outlast everything else on the road by decades. The secrets they use could transform your vehicle into a million-mile machine. Hit that subscribe button right now, because at the end of this video, I'm dropping a game-changing tip that has saved drivers an average of $6,000 in catastrophic repairs. But first, we're starting with the most powerful secret that can literally triple your car's lifespan. Secret number 17, progressive warm-up before driving. Do you ever jump into your car and immediately drive at maximum speed? Surprise, surprise, that habit is destroying your engine. According to Japanese fleet data, properly warmed cars last up to 3 times longer than those that aren't. Revving a cold engine doesn't allow oil sufficient time to circulate and metals to warm up and expand. Cold engine oil typically requires 10 to 30 seconds to reach the camshaft, piston rings, bearings, and turbo if equipped. When you cold rev, you're creating excessive metal-to-metal contact. This causes piston scuffing when pistons scrape against cylinder walls. Over time, both components suffer severe damage and cause engine failure. The real nightmare occurs when bearings collide with the crankshaft. Do this repeatedly, and you'll end up with seized bearings requiring a complete engine rebuild. You're looking at over $5,000 in damages. Here's how to properly warm up your vehicle and prevent engine failure. In winter, wait approximately 30 seconds before pulling out of the driveway. In summer, you can start moving once your seatbelt clicks, but avoid harsh acceleration. Keep your revs under 2,500 RPM for the first 5 miles. Now that your engine is properly warmed, don't go crazy until you see point number 7. Secret number 16. Oil changes based on usage, not just mileage. Ever wondered why mechanics recommend 5,000-mile oil changes while manufacturers recommend 10,000? Because we're the ones repairing the cars. Over 70% of cars requiring major engine repair after 125,000 miles followed manufacturer recommendations. Most people don't actually know their manual's contents. Instead of following the regular service schedule suggesting 10 or 15,000 mile oil changes, check the severe service schedule. The severe schedule applies to anyone driving in extreme weather, high pollution or dust areas, stop-and-go traffic, and trips under 4 miles. That's why the Japanese secret is changing oil every 10,000 kilometers or 6,200 miles for highway driving. But for city driving, change oil every 7,000 kilometers or 4,300 miles. However, that's not the complete story. Based on driving habits, heat, or road conditions, oil can deteriorate faster. That's why you should change oil based on usage, not just mileage. Monthly, perform a drop test. Place an oil drop from the dipstick onto paper. If the oil spreads with a clean, light brown appearance, it's acceptable. But if it's dark and doesn't spread much, it's replacement time. If you've been diligent with oil changes, don't get overconfident yet. We still have more fluids to examine. Secret number 15, regular fluid checks. Most people claim monthly oil level checks, but when did you last check brake, transmission, power steering fluid, and coolant levels? Bonus points for windshield washer fluid? This literally takes 5 minutes, but prevents up to 90% of major breakdowns. Check engine oil level monthly while the engine is cold for the most accurate reading. Otherwise, check it 10 minutes after driving. That's also when to check transmission and power steering fluid, which should be done monthly. If any appear much darker in color, consult an expert. If low, top up with identical fluid. Don't mix brands or different fluid types. Next, check coolant and brake fluid twice yearly. However, check all these before every long journey and at the first sign of trouble. So if you experience acceleration problems, strange noises, or decreased fuel economy, check your fluids. While you're at it, you need to do the next thing too. Secret number 14, early air and fuel filter changes. Here's another manual section you need to completely ignore. Most manufacturers recommend engine air filter changes every 30,000 to 45,000 miles. For fuel filters, recommendations range from 30,000 miles to never. That's because some manufacturers, like Ford, install so-called lifetime filters. However, that name is misleading. These filters only last as long as the fuel pump does, and vice versa. The life expectancy of those filters is closer to 50,000 miles. Whether it's a lifetime filter or regular filter, follow expert recommendations, not manufacturer guidelines. This means the engine air filter changes every 15,000 miles or annually. Fuel filters should be changed every 20,000 miles or every 2 years. But like oil, it doesn't depend solely on mileage. If your filter is dirty, replace it. Using clogged filters affects the air-fuel ratio, impacting fuel economy, engine performance, and longevity. Running rich eventually damages the catalytic converter and causes fuel wash. Conversely, lean conditions increase combustion temperatures and can melt pistons. In other words, not replacing a $20 filter can cause over $2,000 in repairs, but the next hack can save you from catastrophic engine failure and costs even less than a filter. Secret number 13, clean intake system every 25,000 miles. Imagine never cleaning your nostrils. Every bit of dust, pollen, and bacteria just clings to your nose hairs forever. That's a recipe for illness. And that's what many drivers do to their cars. The air intake system brings oxygen into the engine for combustion. Over time, carbon and dirt deposits accumulate in the throttle body and intake valve. Dirt and debris also clog the air filter, which we've discussed, and the mass airflow sensor. Without sufficient oxygen and a faulty mass airflow sensor, the engine runs rich. You'll experience rough idling, poor acceleration, power loss, misfires, and reduced fuel economy. If the throttle body valve gets stuck closed, the car can stall during acceleration. Forget expensive engine rebuilds. You could face a deadly collision. That's why you should clean the intake system every 25,000 miles. However, you can extend this to every 30,000 miles if you also do the next thing. Secret number 12. Only use high-quality fuel. Did you know car manufacturers don't encourage standard gasoline? Gasoline meeting EPA's minimum standards doesn't contain enough detergent. That's why carbon builds up on critical engine components in as little as 10,000 miles. That's why every 50,000 miles you need professional fuel injector cleaning. This costs anywhere from $500 to $1,000. You'll also need to clean piston crowns, cylinder heads, and intake valves. Over time, these add up to thousands of dollars. There are two simple ways to reduce costs. First, use fuel additives every 3,000 to 10,000 miles. Yes, we know some additives are snake oil. That's why we've compiled a list of trustworthy fuel system cleaners, 13 engine additives that work and 5 that'll kill your car. The second way to keep your engine clean is using top-tier fuel. It contains extra additives and detergents proven to reduce carbon buildup. It results in 19 times fewer intake valve deposits and boosts fuel economy by up to 4%. It also prevents expensive fuel system cleaning later and boosts your chances of reaching 1 million miles. Secret number 11, battery terminal maintenance. Did you know Japanese cars can fail the shaken inspection if there's corrosion on battery terminals? Yes, that whitish-green powder you've seen on your battery can cost Japanese owners a $500 penalty. As your battery ages, hydrogen gas from battery acid reacts with metal terminals. This corrosion, or what many call rust, prevents your battery from charging or discharging properly. This jeopardizes all electrical systems. Sensors will malfunction, engine performance drops, and the car might not start. Ignore this too long and you'll spend over $1,000 on a new alternator, starter, and battery. That's why you need to clean the corrosion immediately. Disconnect the battery and apply a baking soda and water mixture to neutralize corrosion. After it fizzes, scrub off the powder using a wire brush or toothbrush. Next, rinse with water and dry the battery. Apply a thin Vaseline layer to prevent further corrosion before reconnecting the battery. This takes under 30 minutes and costs under $1, but can save thousands. Secret number 10, preventive replacement of belts and tensioners. The adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, doesn't apply to your engine's belts. Most drivers ignore squealing belts as long as the car drives fine, but belts are like the car's spine. Once they snap, your car is crippled. The serpentine belt connects your alternator, AC compressor, power steering pump, and water pump. When this snaps, steering becomes difficult. Your car overheats and the AC stops working. When the timing belt breaks, pistons slam into valves. This means if either belt slips or snaps, you could face a complete engine rebuild. A typical serpentine belt lasts between 50,000 and 100,000 miles. Timing belts also have lifespans between 60 and 100,000 miles or 5 to 7 years. That's why you need to inspect belts and tensioners every 30,000 miles and replace them at 50,000 miles. This might cost over $1,000, but it's cheaper than buying a new engine. Secret number 9. Frequent tire checks. Did you know tire failure is the leading cause of accidents and breakdowns? This amounts to over 11,000 crashes and 700 fatalities annually. And no, this isn't due to defective tires, but poor driving habits. Most people don't inflate tires to correct PSI. According to NHTSA, only 19% of drivers properly inflate their tires. Most people follow the sidewall number. However, that shows the tire's maximum PSI, not your car's recommendation. That number is on a sticker located on the driver's side door jamb. Another mistake is not getting wheel alignments and rotating tires. They also don't adjust PSI during winter or use appropriate seasonal tires. Besides accident prevention, proper tire habits maximize fuel economy and protect your suspension, transmission, and warranty. Watch this video to discover 17 car tire mistakes you're making right now. Secret number 8. Cooling system care. Nearly 50% of all engine failures link to cooling system problems. Some studies estimate this as the #1 cause of catastrophic engine failure. That's because cars generate tremendous heat, even with coolant functioning. The combustion chamber generates up to 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. To prevent irreparable engine damage, the coolant, thermostat, water pump, and radiator must work perfectly. Besides checking coolant level monthly, inspect the cooling system every 6 months. If your coolant smells sweet like maple syrup or candy, you have a leak. Also inspect hoses for wear or leaks and keep the radiator clean. Check the radiator cap for rust or damage. Also bleed the radiator as often as your manual recommends. For some cars, this is every 6 months. Ignoring any of these can lead to engine damage costing over $5,000 to repair. Finally, perform a coolant flush every 30,000 miles. However, none of these matter if you don't obey the next rule. Secret number 7. Avoid harsh driving. According to insurance companies, drivers who accelerate and brake harshly spend 30% more on repairs. That extra money goes toward replacing brake pads, tires, and engines. The U.S. Department of Energy says harsh driving increases city fuel consumption by up to 30%. In highway driving, costs shoot up an extra 40%. This means you're costing yourself an extra $600 to $1,000 in maintenance and fuel costs annually based on average figures. Don't forget increased accident risk. Other habits like rapid cornering and speeding over bumps affect shocks, struts, and ball joints. You're also stressing fuel injectors and burning oil quickly, causing sludge buildup. Fleet vehicle studies show harsh driving shortens your car's lifespan by 20 to 40%. This doesn't mean never drive at highway speeds. An Italian tune-up is good for the engine, but avoid rapid RPM changes and hard braking, especially when the engine is cold. If you haven't been treating your car right, the next secret will get you back on track. Secret number 6. General inspection every 6,200 miles. The Japanese shake-in inspection is so rigorous that many drivers who fail don't bother fixing the car. It's often cheaper to buy a new one. Those who can't afford to swap cars like flip-flops must become semi-professional mechanics. Every 6,000 miles or annually, perform a thorough vehicle check. For cars older than 8 years, do this every 6 months. This inspection involves checking belts for cracks, inspecting fluid color and levels, and checking hoses for leaks. You'll also check brake pad thickness, tire pressure, and tread depth. You can do this inspection yourself or pay a mechanic about $200. However, this is money well spent if you trust your mechanic. This test can prevent transmission replacement, engine rebuilds, and major tire problems that endanger your life. If you think this is too cautious, wait until you see the next one. Secret number 5. Lubricate external moving parts. Did you know Japanese cars can fail the shake-in inspection for being too noisy? We're not talking about performance mods like cold air intakes and aftermarket exhausts. We mean regular engine sounds due to age. That's why their car owners are meticulous about car sounds, including squeaky hinges. However, this practice ensures moving parts don't wear prematurely. Here's how it works. Every 3,000 miles, clean door hinges and apply white lithium grease. You can also do this to hood and trunk latches, handbrake cables, and ball joints. Never use lithium grease on rubber bushings. Instead, spray AT205 Reseal. You can use this on all rubber suspension parts and hoses to keep them supple and prevent cracking. Proper lubrication can double suspension component lifespans like ball joints and sway bar links. This saves thousands of dollars and costs under $10. Secret number 4, transmission fluid and filter change. At a staggering cost of almost $6,000, transmission failure is one of the most expensive car repairs. Here's the frustrating part. Transmissions are built to last up to 300,000 miles, but it rarely happens. That's because many people skip routine maintenance, like transmission fluid and filter changes. Part of the reason is so-called lifetime transmission fluids. This is one of the most controversial marketing terms that every expert has debunked. As a general rule, change transmission fluid and filter every 60,000 to 80,000 miles. However, for high-mileage cars, I recommend 30,000 to 50,000 miles. Replacing transmission fluid and filter early prevents premature clutch wear, overheating, and contamination. This simple $500 maintenance habit saves thousands of dollars and protects you from accidents. Can you imagine your transmission failing on the highway? The only thing worse is what's coming next. Secret number 3, regular brake fluid flushes. According to NHTSA, roughly 25% of crashes are due to failed or degraded brakes. And do you know the leading cause of brake failure? Owner neglect. Every driver knows they need to change brake pads when they start squealing. However, contaminated or leaking brake fluid isn't as easy to diagnose. That's why it's often ignored, even when mechanics advise against it. This is extremely risky because brake fluid is hygroscopic, meaning it absorbs moisture over time. This can corrode brake lines, calipers, and ABS components. If you notice brakes feeling spongy or braking distance has diminished, you might need a flush. Flush and replace brake fluid every 2 years or 24,000 miles. Brake pads should be replaced every 30,000 miles. When replacing old car parts, the next secret is critical. Secret number 2, stick to OEM parts. According to Tateway, 78% of drivers choose aftermarket parts over OEM because of affordability and availability. On average, original equipment manufacturer parts cost between 20% to 50% more than aftermarket parts. That adds up during major engine repairs. However, aftermarket parts are cheaper for a reason. They have a high failure rate of up to 15%, compared to just 2% for OEM parts. But even when OEM parts fail, they often come with at least a 12 months warranty. OEM parts fit your car precisely, last longer, and won't damage other components. Unfortunately, OEM parts aren't always available, especially for older models and less popular cars. Another aftermarket advantage is variety. Plus, some components don't need OEM, like bulbs, belts, filters, and oil. If you can afford it, always buy OEM. But if you can't, look for reputable aftermarket manufacturers and never buy OEM from dealers. Dealer markups can reach 50%, so order directly from OEM manufacturers or online. But do you know what can save you the most money on this list? Secret number 1, rust prevention through undercoating. Did you know rust reduces car value by up to 20%? With average used car prices now hovering around $32,000, that's a $6,000 hit, but that's only for mild rust. Extensive rust in critical areas like suspension or transmission can make a car unsellable. If you live in heavy winter areas or near the sea, rust can consume your car in as little as 3 years. That's why you should apply a rust prevention undercoat every 2 years. But even then, regularly wash your undercarriage, especially after driving on salted roads. You should also park in a garage and do annual rust inspections. This prevents a $500 patch job from becoming a $10,000 repair. There you have it, 17 secrets that will turn you into a car inspection professional. These tips will not only save you significant money on repairs, but will also help your car last an unbelievably long time.